Okay, so now I want to record a video about one of the core pillars of the whole RiskMandate.ai, which is this idea of the risk acceptance workflow, which is actually something I've been talking about for probably 10 years now, right? And the core idea, which you have here, is that in a way, you you have to get the risk to be accepted by an individual because that's the moment where things become very accountable, right? But the logic here is risk acceptance and risk decisions are never an individual decision. They all roll up the chain. It has to be evidence based. They have to. There's an option to override some stuff, and you can also start to pre-approve some things. So the core idea here is that there's two dimensions of acceptance. So I think the first principle is that it has to be accepted, right? The question is what you do. So you can either decide, oh, we need some more data, and then the revisit interval is the period of getting that data. You could reduce the risk, right? You could increase the risk. Actually, this is higher, or you can hold it, right? Accept as it is, right? And then, i.e., you accepted the rating that you were given to, right? Of course, the other reduce and increase needs to have evidence to back it up, right? But this is the most important thing. When you accept a risk, you either do it for 1 hour, which basically means that we need something to be resolved in 1 hour. So the whole point of these timings is that that's when you have the next, risk acceptance period. So if you say I want to accept this for 4 hours, it means there's going to be another session, another meeting, another event in 4 hours to accept it, right? Or 2 days, 2 weeks, 4 months. The difference here is the amount of resources that are allocated to it. 1 hour, literally, you have to pull the plug. 4 hours, you have a P1 incident, P0 incident, which have to be remediation. It has to be a change. It has a significant change in the risk profile within that period. 2 days is probably a smaller incident. 2 weeks is a focus project. And 6 months, basically, you come back in there, right? And the point of this is you have to figure out who's going to fund this, who is actually going to pay for this. And that's very important. Maybe there's already a team who can do it. Great. But a lot of times it doesn't. And then the other thing that's super critical is underwriting graph. So every risk acceptance is fundamentally a graph of every single exec that is accepting that until you reach to the top. So you have the direct line owner who does some stuff, who then you have the CSO who has to underwrite, you have the GRC who has to also have an opinion, and then the exact CEO. So all of those three entities, who owns it, the security, the GRC, they both have to have an opinion on this. Maybe they disagree, right? Maybe they want higher, lower, etc. But only but all of these then given to the exec who actually needs to be the one that ultimately accepts and takes responsibility, right? So you could see that in a way, it goes from the owner to the manager, to direct line, to the exec level, to CEO, to the board. Every risk has to follow upwards. There's a way to scale this, but it's important that every risk is always connected to the top, right? But it's also, the point of this is that you also have evidence in this case that some of the options are not available. So this is where it gets interesting. So you might say, hey, I want to get rid of this in an hour or 4 hours, but sometimes you just can't. Sometimes there's systems you can't change, there's physical elements you can't change, there's people not available, there's a whole sort of things that are in place where you can only make a change in 3 months or 2 months, etc. So sometimes even those options get reduced, right, depending on what you have available, right? So fundamentally, this is a way to scale this, right? So you can basically start to connect the dots, right? So you can start to have a profile of pre-approval. So once you have multiple risks accepted in a certain way, then you don't need to, as long as the risk doesn't move, right? So here's the flow as a graph, right? You got the risk, the CTO, the CISO, the GRC have an opinion, you provide technical evidence, etc. Hits the CFO, and then executive CEO board. So by the time he gets here, you should have a really good graph of everything in the middle, right? The point is that every one of these individuals have to accept that the data is correct, and that becomes part of the graph that we are creating.